Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, sir.
Is my slide visible?
Not really, sir. It's slanting.
Now?
No, sir.
Is it visible now?
Yes, now okay.
Thank you for attending. So we'll start with the Mangalacharan. Om Majnana Timirandasya Jnana Salakaya Chakshuruntamyana Tasmai Sri Guru Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manu Bhishtam Staptam Yena Bhutali Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Datati Swapadantikam Vandeyam Sri Guru Sri Udapatakamulam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Sri Rupam Sagrajadam Sargana Raghunathan Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Paljana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sargana Lalita Sri Vishakan Vitamsa He Krishna Karna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpati Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpataru Vyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktananda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. The title for today's topic is Ūrdhva Loka, or upper planetary systems. Actually, last week we covered the topic titled 14 planetary systems. So the purpose of that topic was to kind of get a bird's eye view of the entire 14 planetary systems. But even last week's session was not enough to really compress the entire content. So based on what we saw last week, the 14 planetary systems are commonly divided into 3 divisions, upper, middle, and lower planetary systems. So starting from this week's session, we'll be looking at these 3 divisions. Like today, we'll be looking at the upper planetary system. Then next week will be the middle planetary system, followed by the lower planetary system the following week. So for the next 3 sessions, like starting from today, we'll be covering these 3 divisions in detail. Last week we saw the chapters from second canto of Bhagavatam. In the first chapter of the second canto, there's this conversation between Parikshit Maharaj and Sukadev Goswami. Sukadev Goswami explains the 14 planetary systems in terms of the Virat Rupa of the Supreme Lord. And then a similar description is also given by Brahma to Narada Muni in the 5th chapter of the second canto. But today our focus will be only on the upper planetary systems. But in this verse, it is describing about the 3 divisions based on the Virat Rupa. Burloka Kalpita Padbyam Burloko Asya Navitaha Krita Swarloka Rasa Maharloko Mahatmana. The lower planetary systems up to the stratum of the Earth, Loka, the planets, Kalpita, it is so imagined for or said, Padmyam, out of the legs. Bhuva, the upper, Loka, the planetary system, Asya of him, the Lord, Nabita, from the navel abdomen, Ūrdhva, by the heart, Svarloka, the planetary systems occupied by the demigods, Urasa, by the chest, Maharloka, the planetary system occupied by great sages and saints, Mahatmana, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So from these word definitions for this shloka, can be seen that the lower body of the Supreme Lord is described as representing the lower planetary systems, and the midriff is like representing the middle planetary systems, and the upper portion of the body is described as representing the upper planetary systems. And the words Maharloka Mahatmanaha means that the upper planetary systems are inhabited by the Mahatmas, like mainly the great sages and saints. So they inhabit the upper planetary systems, especially beginning from Maharloka. So in the purport, it's stated that the lower planetary systems up to the limit of the earthly stratum are said to be situated in his legs. Apologies, the translation. The lower planetary systems up to the limit of the earthly stratum are said to be situated in his legs. The middle planetary systems, beginning from Loka, are situated in his navel, and the still higher planetary systems, occupied by the demigods and highly cultured sages and saints, are situated in the chest of the Supreme Lord. So we belong to the middle planetary system, and the upper planetary systems are inhabited by sages and saints. The purport, there are 14 spheres of planetary systems within this universe. So there are total 14 planetary systems, as we saw last week, but these 14 are generally divided into 3 divisions. So the lower systems are called Loka, the middle systems are called Loka, and the higher planetary systems up to Brahmaloka, the highest planetary system of the universe, are called Svarloka. And all of them are situated on the body of the Lord. In other words, no one within this universe is without a relationship with the Lord. So this in the context of the Virat Rupa of the Supreme Lord. So beginning from the lotus feet of the Lord up to the Lord's head, the 14 planetary systems are described as representing the entire body of the Lord. So actually, as we saw last week, here Brahmaloka refers to the abode of Lord Brahma, but it is more appropriate to use the term Satyaloka, because Brahmaloka could also mean the abode, the spiritual world. But Satyaloka, the abode of Lord Brahma, is still within the material universe. So as stated in this verse, from the forefront of the chest up to the neck of the universal form of the Lord are situated the planetary systems named Janaloka and Tapaloka, whereas Satyaloka, the topmost planetary system, is situated on the head of the form. The spiritual planets, however, are eternal. So here the last line of this verse, Brahmaloka Sanatana. So it is distinguished here that Brahmaloka is distinct from Satyaloka. Satyaloka is the abode of Lord Brahma, and Brahmaloka is said to be the spiritual sky, the region of the spiritual planets out of this material universe. So this is roughly the illustration of the upper planetary systems. So we are in Loka, the middle Earth planet. Below Earth, there are 7 lower planetary systems like Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Tala Tala, Mahatala, Rasatala, Patala. And below the Patala Loka, there are 28 hellish planets. And above Earth, there are 6 upper planetary systems. So total, there are 14 planetary systems, including our Earth planet. So the Boer Loka above our Earth planet is said to be the abode of Rakshasas and ghosts. Swarga Loka is the abode of demigods headed by Indra. Beginning from Mar Loka to Satya Loka, actually these are technically these are the uppermost of the upper planetary systems, because even in Swargaloka, there's still there's a lot of opportunities for sense gratification. Only beginning from Marloka to Satyaloka is inhabited by the great saints and sages who are very intensely engaged in bhakti. So Marloka is the region of Bhrigu Rishi, Janaloka, region of Brahma's sons. But it is also said that Tapaloka is the abode of Brahma's sons, and Satyaloka is the abode of Lord Brahma. Before we proceed further, the most commonly used unit of measurement to measure distance in Vedic literature is the unit called yojana. So when we talk about distances between all these planets and also the diameter of every planet, this unit called yojana is used. So in one of the purports in the 3rd canto, Srila Prabhupada has given the approximation of 1 yojana to be equal to 8 miles or 13 kilometers. It's like approximately around 12.8, so close to 13 kilometers. So this unit of measurement is used in all the Vedic literatures for to represent distances. So as we can see here, the distances between the upper planetary systems are given here. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur estimates that Dhruva Loka, the pole star, is 3.8 million yojanas above the sun. Above Dhruva Loka by 10 million yojanas is Marloka. Above Marloka by 20 million yojanas is Janaloka. Above Janaloka by 80 million yojanas is Tapaloka, and above Tapaloka by 120 million yojanas is Satyaloka. Thus, the distance from the sun to Satyaloka is 233,800,000 yojanas. The Vaikuntha planets begin 26,200,000 yojanas above Satyaloka. So even actually from in this material universe, Satyaloka is the topmost planet. But from Satyaloka itself, also the Vaikuntha planets are like quite far away. And even the Vaikuntha region itself is just like one portion of the spiritual sky, because the Goloka Dhams are much higher than the Vaikuntha Dhams. Thus, the Vishnu Purana describes that the covering of the universe is 260 million yojanas away from the sun. The distance from the sun to the earth is 100,000 yojanas. And below the earth by 70,000 yojanas are the 7 lower planetary systems called Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Talatala, Mahatala, Rasatala, and Patala. Below these lower planets by 30,000 yojanas, Sheshanaga is lying on the Garbhodaka ocean. That ocean is 249,800,000 yojanas deep. Thus, the total diameter of the universe is approximately 500 million yojanas. So we can clearly see here that the sun planet is like it's somewhat the lowest in the upper region. The sun planet is still above our Earth planet, but still it is quite low, and it's still quite far away from Ūrdhva Loka, which is much higher than the sun planet. But still, even Ūrdhva Loka is still below the Loka, and Loka is below Loka is below Loka, and Loka is below Loka. Loka is the topmost of the upper planetary systems, the abode of Lord Brahma. So the distances between all these planets are given. So this is like the illustration. So we are here in the middle planet, Loka. Above us is Loka. Above Loka is the Swarga Loka. So the Ūrdhva Loka is somewhere here. So all these distances are the same as what was given in the previous purport. So above the Brahmaloka is actually on top of the material universe. So above Satyaloka actually is the spiritual sky. So beginning from Marloka, all the great saints and sages who are intensely engaged in devotional service, they are all occupying these 4 planets. So once the current Brahma gets to be liberated from his current position, because even Lord Brahma is still subject to the vicious cycle of Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi. So that's why even Lord Brahma has to engage in devotional service. But once after his lifetime, when he gets promoted to the spiritual planets like Vaikuntha Loka, so that position in Satyaloka will be vacant. So any of the sages from these lower planets who are engaged in bhakti, they could be promoted to this position of Lord Brahma. The sun is situated vertically in the middle of the universe, in the area between Loka and Loka, which is called Antariksha, outer space. The distance between the sun and the circumference of the universe is 25 Koti yojanas. O king, the sun god and the sun planet divide all the directions of the universe. It is only because of the presence of the sun that we can understand what the sky, the higher planets, this world, and the lower planets are. It is also only because of the sun that we can understand which places are for material enjoyment, which are for liberation, which are hellish and subterranean. So the sun has a very special position, because even in this purport, our starting point is like from the sun. Ūrdhva Loka is above the sun. So the sun is regarded as the center of the universe, like the main point of reference. So we are in Loka here. The sun is above us, and between Ūrdhva Loka and Ūrdhva Loka and the sun, all the other planets like Mars, Jupiter, and all those planets are located within the Shishumara chakra arrangement. So beyond Ūrdhva Loka is Marloka and all their upper planets. So even if we look at the entire upper planetary system, Swargaloka and below are still considered like the lowermost portion of the upper planetary systems. Only beginning from Loka is like the true upper planetary systems. So even in Brahma Samhita, it is stated the sun, who is the king of all the planets, full of infinite effulgence, the image of the good soul, is as the eye of this world. I adore the primal Lord Govinda, in pursuance of whose order the sun performs his journey, mounting the wheel of time. So it is only because of the sun that we are experiencing the effect of time. Like there's this expression which is often used from dawn till dusk. So even in that expression, we are actually referring to the sun. So there are further descriptions, like so far we have seen above the Earth planet, the sun is there, and above the sun is Loka, and above Loka is Maharjana, Tapa, and Satyaloka. In the 23rd chapter of 5th canto, this description regarding the Shishumara chakra is given. Actually, the Shishumara chakra is the arrangement of how all the various planets and stars, even the sun and moon, are arranged to revolve around the Loka. And even Loka is part of the Shishumara chakra arrangement. So that description is given in this chapter. So the first verse, Shukadev Goswami continued, "My dear king, 1.3 million yojanas above the planets of the seven sages is the place that learned scholars describe as the abode of Lord Vishnu. There, the son of Maharaj Uttanapada, the great devotee Maharaj Dhruva, still resides as the life source of all the living entities who live until the end of the creation. Agni, Indra, Prajapati, Kashyapa, and Dharma all assemble there to offer him honor and respectful obeisances. They circumambulate him with their right sides toward him. I've already described the glorious activities of Maharaj Dhruva in the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. The pastimes where Narada Muni and Krishna meet Dhruva Maharaj is given in the 4th canto. And after observing the intense austerities of Dhruva, Krishna awards him the Dhruva Loka planet, established by the supreme will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The pole star, which is the planet of Maharaj Dhruva, constantly shines as the central pivot for all the stars and planets. The unsleeping, invisible, most powerful time factor causes these luminaries to revolve around the pole star without cessation. So the Dhruva Loka is the central pivot for all the stars and planets. So beginning from the sun planet, even the sun planet is also part of that arrangement, where Dhruva Loka is the central pivot, but even Dhruva Loka also is part of the Shishumara chakra arrangement. Similarly, all the planets and all the hundreds and thousands of stars revolve around the pole star, the planet of Maharaj Dhruva, in their respective orbits, some higher and some lower, fastened by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to the machine of material nature according to the results of their fruitive acts. They are driven around the pole star by the wind and will continue to be so until the end of creation. These planets float in the air within the vast sky, just as clouds with hundreds of tons of water float in the air, or as the great China eagles, due to the results of past activities, fly high in the sky and have no chance of falling to the ground. So this is regarding the orbits of the planets which revolve around Dhruva Loka. This great machine, consisting of the stars and planets, resembles the form of a Shishumara dolphin in the water. It is sometimes considered an incarnation of Krishna, Vasudeva. Great yogis meditate upon Vasudeva in this form because it is actually visible. So this Shishumara arrangement, which resembles a dolphin, is actually visible in the sky. So the yogis meditate upon this form, which is regarded as another form of Krishna, because even the Dhruva Loka is part of the arrangement which resembles this dolphin. All the various planets are situated like along this pattern of this Shishumara dolphin. This form of the Shishumara has its head downward and its body coiled. On the end of its tail is the planet of Dhruva. On the body of its tail are the planets of the demigods, Prajapati, Agni, Indra, and Dharma. And at the base of its tail are the planets of the demigods, Data and Vidata. So as mentioned earlier, all the other stars and planets, they revolve around the Dhruva Loka, but even Dhruva Loka itself is part of this arrangement of the Shishumara chakra. Where the hips might be on the Shishumara are the 7 saintly sages like Vashishta and Angira. The coiled body of the Shishumara chakra turns towards its right side, on which the 14 constellations from Abhijit to Punarvasu are located. On its left side are the 14 stars from Pushya to Uttarashada. Thus, its body is balanced because its sides are occupied by an equal number of stars. On the back of the Shishumara is the group of stars known as Ajaviti, and on its abdomen is the Ganges that flows in the sky, the Milky Way. So all the stars, all the various planets, including the sun and moon, are all part of this arrangement of Shishumara, where Dhruva Loka is also part of this arrangement. But all the planets, all the other planets, stars and sun and moon, they revolve around Dhruva Loka, since Dhruva Loka is the central pivot of this arrangement. So up to this point, we were seeing the arrangement beginning from the sun to all the planets and stars upwards, because from the sun to Dhruva Loka itself is a very complex arrangement, like the Shishumara chakra arrangement. And beyond Dhruva Loka is Marloka. Now, in these few verses, the description is given like what lies below the sun but above the earth planet. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, "My dear king, some historians, the speakers of the Puranas, say that 10,000 yojanas below the sun is the planet known as Rahu, which moves like one of the stars. So the planet Rahu is below the sun." In all the verses before this, we were looking at the descriptions regarding the sun and the other planets above the sun. The presiding deity of Rahu, who is the son of Shimika, is the most abominable of all asuras. But although he is completely unfit to assume that the position of a demigod or planetary deity, he has achieved that position by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Later, I shall speak further about him. The sun globe, which is a source of heat, extends for 10,000 yojanas. The moon extends for 20,000 yojanas, and Rahu extends for 30,000 yojanas. Formerly, when nectar was being distributed, Rahu tried to create dissension between the sun and moon by interposing himself between them. Rahu is inimical toward both the sun and the moon, and therefore he always tries to cover the sunshine and moonshine on the dark moon day and full moon night. After hearing from the sun and moon demigods about Rahu's attack, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu engages his disc known as the Sudarshana Chakra to protect them. The Sudarshana Chakra is the Lord's most beloved devotee and is favored by the Lord. The intense heat of its effulgence, meant for killing non-Vaishnavas, is unbearable to Rahu, and he therefore flees in fear of it. During the time Rahu disturbs the sun or moon, there occurs what people commonly know as an eclipse. So Rahu is actually below the sun, but still above our Earth planet. Below Rahu by 10,000 yojanas are the planets known as Siddhaloka, Charnaloka, and Vidyadhara Loka. Previously in the first verse, we saw that above, even in the illustration, previously we saw that above our Earth planet, Bhuloka, there's Bohr Loka. So actually Rahu is like slightly above the Bohr Loka, and these planets like Siddhaloka, Charnaloka, and Vidyadhara Loka, they are like part of the Bohr Loka planet. Beneath Vidyadhara Loka, Charnaloka, and Siddhaloka in the sky called Antariksha are the places of enjoyment for the Yakshas, Rakshasas, Visachas, ghosts, and so on. Antariksha extends as far as the wind blows, and the clouds float in the sky. Above this, there's no more air. Below the abodes of the Yakshas and Rakshasas, by a distance of 100 yojanas, is the planet Earth. So as we saw earlier in the illustration, above Bhuloka is Loka, and that's why that place is also known as the abode of ghosts, like these Yakshas and Rakshasas. This Loka is actually above our Earth planet, but below Swargaloka. Its upper limits extend as high as swans, eagle, hawks, and similar large birds can fly. So these are the descriptions regarding the upper planetary systems. So now we'll be looking at the Gita perspective of it. So as we know, in 8.115, Krishna says why this place is Dukkalayam Ashashvatam, because the topmost of the upper planetary systems, that is Satyaloka, is inhabited by Lord Brahma, but even Lord Brahma has to die after 100 years of his life. The abode of Brahma does not get destroyed. It only gets annihilated after 100 years of his life. But the lower planetary systems, like below Maharloka, they get submerged every time when Brahma's night arrives. So that is known as the partial annihilation, when all the planets below Maharloka, actually even Dhruvaloka is eternal. The planets below Maharloka will be submerged in the water of Garbhodaka ocean. So during the partial annihilation, which occurs during every night of Brahma, all the living entities are annihilated. So the cycle keeps going on until the end of Brahma's life. So for all the living entities below Maharloka, they keep getting annihilated through this partial annihilation every time when Brahma's night arrives. But for Brahma himself, even he has to die after 100 years of his life. And depending on Brahma's devotional service, he might get elevated to the spiritual sky. Brahma Bhuvana Loka, Punaravastino Arjuna, Mamapetya tu Kaunteya, Punarjanma na Vidyate. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are players of misery, wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. So Krishna is also reiterating that even even from Satyaloka itself, all the players are subject to misery due to this vicious cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. So that's why it's important for us to uh, liberate ourselves from this material universe. Merely elevating ourselves to heavenly planets is not enough, because as stated in the 9th chapter of the Gita, once our accumulated piety expires, we still have to return to this middle earth planet. And depending on our overall karma, uh, even after returning to the earth planet, if we do not really engage in bhakti, we might even get degraded further to the lower planetary systems. In 8.17, this is regarding the calculation of 1 day of Brahma and also his night and his entire duration of life. It is given in the purport of this verse. So, a kalpa is a day of Brahma, and it consists of 1,000 cycles of 4 yugas. Meaning these cycles of 4 yugas, beginning from Satya, followed by Treta, followed by Dwapara and Kali. This cycle of four yugas are known as Divya Yuga or Chatur Yuga. So 1,000 Chatur Yugas make up 1 day of Brahma, meaning his daytime, the daytime of Brahma, like half day of Brahma. The cycle of Satya is characterized by virtue, wisdom, and religion, there being practically no ignorance and vice. And the yuga lasts for actually even in last week's session we saw the calculation. So Satya Yuga is actually 4 times that of the duration of Kali Yuga. Then Treta Yuga is 3 times the duration of Kali. Dwapara Yuga is double the duration of Kali. And Kali Yuga lasts for 432,000 years. So it is stated here that in Satya Yuga, it is fully characterized by virtues, and there are practically no vices. In Treta Yuga, vice is introduced. In Dwapara Yuga, there is an even greater decline in virtue and religion, vice increasing. And finally, in Kali Yuga, there is an abundance of strife, ignorance, irreligion, and vice, true virtue being practically non-existent. So it is like in Satya Yuga, virtue is in full and there's no vice. So as it progresses towards Kali Yuga, the scenario is the exact opposite. In Kali Yuga, there's there are no virtues, only full of vice. In Kali Yuga, vice increases to such a point that at the termination of the Yuga, the Supreme Lord himself appears as the Kalki avatar, vanquishes the demons, saves his devotees, and commences another Satya Yuga. So after the end of one Chatur Yuga, the cycle continues again. These 4 yugas rotating 1,000 times comprise 1 day of Brahma, and the same number comprise 1 night. Brahma lives 100 of such years and then dies. That is the most tragic part. Though he gets to live for 311 trillion and 40 billion Earth years, after that duration, even he has to die. That is Lord Brahma, the topmost Jiva Tattva. By these calculations, the life of Brahma seems fantastic and interminable, but from the viewpoint of eternity, it is as brief as a lightning flash. In the material universe, not even Brahma is free from the process of birth, old age, disease, and death. Brahma, however, is directly engaged in the service of the Supreme Lord in the management of this universe. Therefore, he at once attains liberation. Elevated sannyasis are promoted to Brahma's particular planet, Satyaloka, which is the highest planet in the material universe and which survives all the heavenly planets in the upper strata of the planetary system. But in due course, Brahma and all the inhabitants of Brahmaloka are subject to death according to the law of material nature. So even in the second canto of Bhagavatam, in chapter 9, when Krishna reveals the Chatursloki Bhagavatam, it starts from 2.9.33. When Krishna reveals the Chatursloki Bhagavatam to Brahma, Brahma actually prays to Krishna to bless him so that he does not become intoxicated with his creative powers. Brahma prays to Krishna so that he remains humble in with a very submissive attitude towards Krishna. So that's why it's important even for Brahma to engage in Krishna consciousness so that he can even so that ultimately even he can be liberated from this vicious cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. So actually, in this verse from the Gita, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada has explained regarding the calculations of how to calculate 1 day of Brahma and how we get the 311 trillion 40 billion Earth years. But all the formulas are from Bhagavatam, 3rd canto. In chapter 11 of the 3rd canto, it's titled Calculation of Time. So in that chapter, all the formulas are given of how the time units in Earth are calculated and how the time units in the planets of the demigods and also the planet of Brahma are calculated. So in 3.11.16, Vidura said, I now understand the life durations of the residents of the Pita planets and heavenly planets as well as that of the human beings. Now kindly inform me of the durations of life of those greatly learned living entities who are beyond the range of a kalpa. So since the scope of today's topic is regarding the upper planetary systems, actually in the chapter 11 of this 3rd canto, from the first 15 verses, they describe the time measurement for the Earth planet, like how every second and every minutes are calculated according to Vedic literature. But from this 16th verse onwards, the formulas related to calculation of time in the upper planetary systems are given. The partial dissolution of the universe that takes place at the end of Brahma's day does not affect all the planetary systems. The planets of highly learned living entities like the sages Shanaka and Brigu are not affected by the dissolutions of the millenniums. All the planets are of different types and each is controlled by a different Kala Chakra or schedule of eternal time. The time of the Earth planet is not applicable to other more elevated planets. Therefore, Vidura herein inquires about the duration of life on other planets. So this partial dissolution, which occurs during the night of Brahma, is actually when the water levels of the Garbhodaka ocean rises and it goes up to Maharloka. It doesn't really affect Maharloka. As mentioned earlier, from Maharloka and above, Mahar, Jana, Tapa, and Satyaloka, those planets are inhabited by the great sages. So those planets are not affected when Brahma's night arrives. So the water rises only up to still below Maharloka. Then when Brahma's day arrives, then the water levels subside and the entire creation becomes manifest again, like the earth planet also becomes manifest during Brahma's day. And then when his night arrives, again the water level rises and all the planets become submerged, and the cycle keeps going on and on. So actually in the third canto, it is about the conversation between Maitreya and Vidura. So Vidura wants to know about the Kala Chakra in the upper planetary systems, to which Maitreya replies, O Vidura, the 4 millenniums are called the Satya, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali Yuga. The aggregate number of years of all of these combined is equal to 12,000 years of the demigods. So the duration of Kali Yuga in terms of the Earth years is actually 432,000 years. That is the duration of Kali Yuga. Dwapara Yuga is double, Treta Yuga is triple, and Satya Yuga is 4 times. So the total duration for all the 4 yugas is actually 10 times 432,000, meaning 4.32 million Earth years. So this is actually equal to 12,000 years of the demigods. So 4.32 million Earth years is equal to 12,000 years of the demigods. So that's how we get 1 year of the demigods equal to 360 years of the Earth years. As will be clarified in the subsequent verses, 12,000 of the demigods years, including the transitional periods, which are called Yuga Sandhyas, comprise the total of the aforementioned 4 millenniums. Thus, the aggregate of the above mentioned 4 millenniums is 4.32 million years. So the total duration for the 4 yugas in terms of Earth years is 4.32 million Earth years, but in terms of the demigod years, it's actually 12,000. So 4.32 million divided by 12,000, we get the duration for 1 demigod year. 1 demigod year is equal to 360 Earth years. So this is the duration of for the 4 yugas in terms of Earth years. Kali Yuga is equal to 1 times 432,000. So Dwapara is times 2, Treta is times 3, Satya is times 4. So the most important factor to be remembered in terms of the Earth years is 432K, 432,000. So the total for the 4 yugas is 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, 10 times 432,000, which is equal to 4.32 million Earth years or human years. The duration of the Satya millennium equals 4,800 years of the years of the demigods. Duration of Treta, 3,600. Duration of Dwapara is 2,400, and Kali is 1,200. So these are expressed in terms of the demigod years, and still we can see that the proportion is the same. Like in terms of demigod years, Kali Yuga is 1,200, Dwapara is times 2, Treta is times 3, Satya is times 4. As aforementioned, 1 year of the demigods is equal to 360 years of the human beings. The duration of the Satya Yuga is therefore 4,800 times 360. So we will get back the actual Earth year duration when we convert to Earth year. So 4,800 is actually in terms of the demigod years. When we multiply by 360, then we get back the Earth year for all the yugas. So this is just the summary of the 4 yugas in terms of demigod years. So here the important factor is actually 1200. So again, the calculation is still the same. To get the duration of all 4 yugas, it's again 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, 10 times 1200. So this is the total in demigod years. So if we simply multiply by 360, we'll be getting 4.32 million Earth years. The transitional periods before and after every millennium, which are a few hundred years, as aforementioned, are known as Yuga Sandhyas, or the conjunctions of the 2 millenniums. According to the expert astronomers, in those periods, all kinds of religious activities are performed. So these Yuga Sandhyas are actually the transitional periods between 2 yugas. In the first canto of Bhagavatam, the first canto is actually it describes about like setting the scene, because we can clearly see that the discourse between Sukadeva Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj only starts in the second canto. But even in the last chapter of the first canto, we can see that only in the last chapter of the first canto, the meeting between Sukadeva Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj happens. So all those chapters before that describe the events leading towards that meeting. But in the first chapter, we get to see the assembly of the sages at Naimisharanya. So in that assembly, Sutta Goswami actually describes regarding how he saw the discourse between Sukadeva Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj. So actually, even the assembly of the sages at Naimisharanya was happening during this Yuga Sandhya period, the transitional period from Dwapara Yuga to Kali Yuga. So we even saw from the first chapter of the first canto that the sages of Naimisharanya, headed by Shaunaka Rishi, were actually very anxious to know about what should be the best methods of worship and how the Kali Jivas should be advised to live because of the ill effects of Kali Yuga. So during that transitional period, all those sages were involved in conducting sacrificial activities, because they could see how unfortunate Kali Jivas are going to be in Kali Yuga. So they were anxious to know from Sutta Goswami how Kali Jivas could liberate themselves. O Vidura, in the Satya millennium, mankind properly and completely maintained the principles of religion, but in other millenniums, religion gradually decreased by one part as irreligion was proportionately admitted. Outside of the 3 planetary systems, Swarga, Matya, and Patala, the 4 yugas multiplied by 1000 comprise 1 day on the planet of Brahma. A similar period comprises a night of Brahma, in which the creator of the universe goes to sleep. So we saw that in terms of the Earth years, when we sum up the total of the duration for all the 4 yugas, we get 4.32 million Earth years for the combination of the 4 yugas. But the day of Brahma is actually equal to 1000 times the duration of the 4 yugas. So meaning 1000 times 4.32 million, that is 4.32 billion. That is only for the daytime of Brahma. His nighttime is also of the same duration. So 1 full day of Brahma is equal to 8.64 billion Earth years. When Brahma goes to sleep in his nighttime, the 3 planetary systems below Brahmaloka are all submerged in the water of devastation, In his sleeping condition, Brahma dreams about the Garbhodrashai Vishnu and takes instruction from the Lord for the rehabilitation of the devastated area of space. So during the night time of Brahma, the lower planets, even including the Earth planet, becomes submerged in the waters of Garbhodra ocean. This happens during the night time, and when the daytime of Brahma arrives, the water subsides and all the planets become manifest again. So this is the summary of the calculation. So one full day of Brahma is equal to 8.64 billion years in terms of Earth years. Brahma lives for 100 years. There are 360 days in each year of Brahma. So 100 times 360 times 8.64 billion. The total duration of Brahma's life is 311 trillion 40 billion human years or Earth years. Then the same value is based on the demigod years, but still when we convert to human years, we get the same value. After the end of Brahma's night, the creation of the three worlds begins again in the daytime of Brahma, and they continue to exist through the life durations of 14 consecutive Manus or fathers of mankind. Each and every Manu enjoys a life of a little more than 71 sets of 4 millenniums. So meaning during one day of Brahma, during the 1000 Chaturyugas, there are 14 Manus, and every Manu reigns for a period of 71 Chaturyugas. So we get 14 Manus throughout the period of 1000 Chaturyugas because every Manu is in charge for 71 Chaturyugas. So it is 1000 divided by 71, we get 14 Manus. In the creation during Brahma's day, the three planetary systems, Svarga, Malkya, and Patala, revolve, and the inhabitants, including the lower animals, human beings, demigods, and pitas, appear and disappear in terms of their fruitive activities. So all the living entities below Loka, they become manifest during Brahma's day, and they are engaged in their fruitive activities. At the end of the day, under the insignificant portion of the mode of darkness, the powerful manifestation of the universe merges in the darkness of night. By the influence of eternal time, the innumerable living entities remain merged in that dissolution, and everything is silent. So once the lower planets become submerged in water, the entire creation becomes unmanifest. So there's no activity during that time. All the living entities are merged in the body of Vishnu. The devastation takes place due to the fire emanating from the mouth of Shakrashana, and thus great sages like Bhrigu and other inhabitants of Marloka transport themselves to Janaloka, being distressed by the warmth of the blazing fire, which rages through the three worlds below. At the beginning of the devastation, all the seas overflow and hurricane winds blow very violently. Thus, the waves of the seas become ferocious, and in no time at all, the three worlds are full of water. So, meaning during this period of devastation, the Garbhodra ocean waters fully, the planets become submerged in the Garbhodra ocean waters. Thus, the process of the exhaustion of the duration of life exists for every one of the living beings, including Lord Brahma. One's life endures for only 100 years in terms of the times in the different planets, meaning that Brahma gets to live for 100 years according to his calendar. Even the demigods live for 100 years according to their calendar, but the period for demigods is not as long as the period for Brahma, because um, one year of the demigods is only equal to 360 years of the earth years. So meaning the duration for the demigods are actually much shorter compared to Brahma. And even for human beings in this earth planet, we are also meant to live for 100 years. But in Kali Yuga, as predicted in the 12th canto, in the chapter on the symptoms of Kali Yuga, it is stated that when Kali Yuga advances, when it actually gets worse, people will be struggling even to cross the age of 50. So that is like that is supposed to happen during a very advanced stage of Kali Yuga, but we can already see that happening even now. Every living being lives for 100 years, but these 100 years are not equal in every case. The longest duration of 100 years belongs to Brahma. But although the life of Brahma is very long, it expires in the course of time. Brahma is also afraid of his death, and thus he performs devotional service to the Lord, just to release himself from the clutches of illusory energy. So even Brahma is subject to the vicious cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease, and therefore he is also deeply engaged in devotional service to liberate himself from the material bondage. Animals, of course, have no sense of responsibility, but even humans who have developed a sense of responsibility while away their valuable time uh, without engaging in devotional service to the Lord, they live merely unafraid of impending death. It is necessary that every human being be responsible for in preparing himself for the next life, even if he has a duration of life like that of Brahma, the greatest of all living creatures within the universe. So in one of our previous sessions, we saw this hierarchy of uh, Jiva Tattva, Shiva Tattva, Vishnu Tattva, and Krishna Tattva. So the topmost Jiva Tattva is Lord Brahma. So even if we develop qualities that are very similar to Lord Brahma, still we cannot be liberated from this material bondage. So that's why even Brahma is deeply engaged in devotional service to liberate himself. So that is the perfect example. Like that's why Brahma is known as the topmost Jiva Tattva. So even we have to follow his example of how he's engaged in devotional service to liberate ourselves from this material bondage. So as long as we are not engaged in devotional service, we are no better than animals, because we are also only going to be engaged in the business of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So only spiritual life and devotional service makes us different from animals. So it is very important that we do not waste our precious human form of life. So in the purport of 8.17, Gita 8.17, Prabhupada has explained the calculation of Brahma's day and night. But all those formulas actually come from the 11th chapter of the 3rd canto. In its title, Calculation of Time. So, in Gita 8.18, it stated at the beginning of Brahma's day, all living entities become manifest from the unmanifest state, and thereafter, when the night falls, they are merged into the unmanifest again. Again and again, when Brahma's day arrives, all living entities come into being, and with the arrival of Brahma's night, they are helplessly annihilated. So this is quite similar to what we have seen the descriptions from Bhagavatam. So during the night of Brahma, the living entities become unmanifest, in the sense that during the day of Brahma, all living entities get their material body, but during the night of Brahma, they get annihilated, and the living entities, the spirit souls, remain compact in the body of Vishnu. then the cycle keeps repeating throughout the life of Brahma. In this way, they are captivated by the spell of the material world. But those intelligent persons who take to Krishna consciousness use the human life fully in the devotional service of the Lord, chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thus, they transfer themselves even in this life to the spiritual planet of Krishna and become eternally blissful there, not being subject to such rebirths. In the fourth canto, chapter 7, verse 42, this is actually a prayer by the demigods. So in this prayer, the demigods are praying to Krishna. They are saying, today you are visible to us, who are all your servants, please give us protection. The devastation indicated in this verse is the partial devastation of the lower planets within the universe when Lord Brahma goes to sleep, meaning during Brahma's night. This is the partial devastation which happens during every night of Brahma, but there's also the complete devastation which happens when at the end of Brahma's life. So the higher planetary systems, beginning with Loka, from Loka upwards, they are not affected by the partial devastation. Another significant point in this verse is that the demigods said, we are all your servants. Give us your protection. The demigods depend on the protection of Vishnu. They are not independent. Bhagavad Gita therefore condemns the worship of demigods because there is no need of it and clearly states that only those who have lost their sense go asking for favors of the demigods. So whatever Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita is not without basis, because even from the Bhagavatam we can clearly see in many instances the demigods are praying for the mercy of Vishnu. So that's why in Gita we can see verses like 5.29, Voktaram Ekam Tapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Surdam Sarvabhutanam Jnatva Mam Shantum Nachati. A person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the supreme lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. So Krishna is the supreme lord of all planets and demigods. And he is not simply saying this, it is proven from the verses of Bhagavatam, when there are many instances when demigods are praying to Krishna or Vishnu. Also in chapter 7, 7.20 onwards, there are these verses which discourage demigod worship. Those whose intelligence has been stolen by material desires surrender unto demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. I am in everyone's heart as the super soul. As soon as one desires to worship some demigod, I make his faith steady so that he can devote himself to that particular deity. So, though Krishna does not encourage demigod worship, he actually respects the freedom of living entities, and therefore he still helps to make the faith in demigod to be strong. However, all the boons actually granted by Krishna himself. Endowed with such a faith, he endeavors to worship a particular demigod and obtains his desires. But in actuality, these benefits are bestowed by me alone. Men of small intelligence worship the demigods, and their fruits are limited and temporary. Those who worship the demigods go to the planets of the demigods, but my devotees ultimately reach my supreme planet. So the demigods are also living entities because they are still below Satyaloka. So even they are part of this material universe. So merely by praying to demigods, we are only going to get temporary results, which are also granted by Krishna himself. And as seen in many instances from the Bhagavatam, even demigods pray for the mercy of Krishna in many instances. So it is not actually a disrespect to the demigods. However, we can actually follow the example set by the demigods because they themselves are praying to Krishna for his mercy. Therefore, we should follow their example and engage in worshipping Krishna directly. So Krishna also says in 9.25, those who worship the demigods will take birth among demigods. Those who worship the ancestors go to ancestors. Those who worship ghosts and spirits will take birth among such beings, and those who worship me will live with me. So even here, Krishna respects the personal freedom of living entities. Now, this is actually the continuation of the purport from the previous purport. The demigods say, "We are your eternal servants." They simply serve the personality of Godhead sincerely with love and faith, performing everything with that loving service, and the Lord gives such devotees direct protection. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, "Simply surrender unto me, and I will give you protection from all the reactions of sinful activities." This material world is so created that one has to act sinfully, knowingly or unknowingly, and unless his life is dedicated to Vishnu, he has to suffer all the reactions of sinful activities. But one who surrenders and dedicates his life for the service of the Lord has direct protection from the Lord. He has no fear of suffering from sinful activities, nor does he desire willingly or unwillingly to do anything which is sinful. So we even saw a verse from Gita yesterday in 9.30. Apichit sudrataro padhyama ananyabhak sadureva samantavya samyak vestoi sa. In that verse, Krishna says that any devotee who is sincerely engaged in devotional service, even if that devotee has a temporary fall down accidentally or unknowingly, Krishna still tolerates such temporary fall down, and he helps the devotee to regain his enthusiasm in bhakti. So that is also because this material world is so created that one has to act sinfully. So most of the time, even unknowingly, we are forced to uh, incur some sins, and that's why Krishna is so merciful. As long as we are sincere in our path of bhakti, he still helps to elevate us in our bhakti. Then in 18.66, Krishna says, Sarva Dharman Parjatya Mam Ekam Saranam Raja Aham Tvam Sarva Papibhyo Mokshe Swami Masucha. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. So that is the additional assurance given by Krishna when he says, do not fear. Okay, so we have come to the last part of this topic. But before that, shall we take a break for 5 minutes? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We'll continue after 5 minutes. Hare Krishna. Can we continue?
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Ken Prabhu.
Okay. So this is the last part related to the modes of material nature. In Gita 14.14 stated that when one dies in the mode of goodness, he attains to the pure higher planets of the great sages. So like from Loka and upwards, those are all the planets inhabited by the great sages and saints. So there they are still very intensely engaged in bhakti, and still they are trying to elevate themselves to the spiritual sky. So if we merely develop the mode of goodness, still will still end up in those upper planetary systems, which are still part of the material universe. When one dies in the mode of passion, he takes birth among those engaged in fruitive activities. And when one dies in the mode of ignorance, he takes birth in the animal kingdom. So actually here, it is related to the kind of association that we get. If we die in the mode of passion, we take birth among those engaged in fruitive activities. If we die in the mode of goodness, we get to have the association of the great sages in the higher planets. Just there are some important points from this purport. Some people have the impression that when the soul reaches the platform of human life, it never goes down again. This is incorrect. According to this verse, if one develops the mode of ignorance after his death, he is degraded to an animal form of life. From there, one has to again elevate himself by an evolutionary process to come again to the human form of life. Meaning, the current human form which we have got is actually the result of the evolutionary process through which we have actually taken the 84 lakh material bodies, and we have finally obtained this precious human form of life. Therefore, those who are actually serious about human life should take to the mode of goodness, and in good association transcend the modes and become situated in Krishna consciousness. This is the aim of human life. Otherwise, there's no guarantee that the human being will again attain to the human state, status. So it is best if we can transcend the modes and become fixed in Krishna consciousness, so that we can elevate ourselves straight to the spiritual planets. If not, at most we should at least aim for the higher planets, which is not worth it, because still we are going to be trapped in this material universe. So it's best to just get it right and liberate ourselves from this material universe. However, the most unfortunate thing would be to be degraded to the animal kingdom if we fail to at least develop the mode of goodness. Of course, the best is to develop pure goodness or Shuddha Sattva, meaning to transcend the modes. Also in 14.18, it stated, those situated in the mode of goodness gradually go upward to the higher planets. Those in the mode of passion live on the earthly planets, and those in the abominable mode of ignorance go down to the hellish worlds. So compared to the previous verse in 14.14 and 14.15, it talks about the kind of association that we get. And in this verse, it talks about the destination. So even if we develop the mode of goodness completely, still we can only attain the higher planets within this same material universe. Also, there's this verse from the Bhagavatam related to the context of the modes of material nature and the planetary systems. Those who are situated in the mode of goodness act piously according to Vedic injunctions. Thus, they are elevated to the higher planetary systems where the demigods live. Those who are influenced by the mode of passion engage in various types of productive activities in the planetary systems where human beings live. Similarly, those influenced by the mode of darkness or ignorance are subjected to various types of misery and live in the animal kingdom. So this verse from the Bhagavatam is similar to what is mentioned in Gita 14.18. Those influenced by the mode of goodness are given places in the upper planetary systems, Satyaloka, Tapaloka, Janaloka, and Marloka. Those influenced by the mode of passion are given places in the Burloka and Borloka. Those influenced by the mode of ignorance are given places in the lower planetary systems or the animal kingdom. Qualitatively, the living entity is the same as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but because of his forgetfulness, he gets different bodies in different planetary systems. The human society is overly influenced by the mode of passion. So, since we have got this human form of life, it simply means that we are predominantly dominated by the mode of passion, and that's why we as human beings, we are often inclined towards being engaged in fruitive activities and the accumulation of material wealth. In Bhagavad Gita, such activities are described as Ūrdhva karma, that is distressful activities, like this obsession of human beings to simply accumulate material wealth, that too to the extent of completely neglecting spiritual inquiry and devotional service is known as Ūrdhva karma or distressful activities, because ultimately it leads to distress in the sense that we are going to remain trapped in this vicious cycle. No matter how much material wealth we accumulate, it is not going to accompany us when we leave this body. We still have to, if we are going to waste this human form of life with complete disregard for spiritual inquiry, then it's very unlikely that we are going to get this precious human form of life when once we quit this body. The result is that there's always a distressful situation. In contrast to these men are those influenced by the mode of goodness, the karmis and jnanis. The karmis, under the direction of Vedic instructions, try to elevate themselves to higher planetary systems. The jnanis try to merge into the existence of Brahman, the impersonal feature of the Lord. Covered by the mode of ignorance in material nature, the living entity is sometimes a male, sometimes a female, sometimes a eunuch, sometimes a human being, sometimes a demigod, sometimes a bird, animal, so on. In this way, he is wandering within the material world. His acceptance of different types of bodies is brought about by his activities under the influence of the modes of nature. So there's always this gender-based comparison, and all these are all meaningless, because we are all qualitatively the same, in the sense that we are parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. So we are spirit souls. Our bodily designation is completely meaningless, because it is temporary. Whether we have got a male body or a female body, it is going to decay. I mean, it is decaying every moment, and at one point of time we have to quit this material body. So it is always important to identify ourselves as who we are actually, meaning we are spirit souls who are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, and that's how we can slowly shed all these obsession for bodily designations. The living entity is part and parcel of the Lord, therefore he is spiritual in quality. The living entity is never material, and his material conception is simply a mistake due to forgetfulness. The Lord is like the full shining sun, and the living entities are like the small particles of that sun. When these small particles are covered by the cloud of Maya, they lose their shining capacity. As soon as the living entity is covered by the ignorance of Maya or darkness, he cannot understand his relationship with the Supreme Lord. Somehow or other, if he comes before the Lord, he can see himself shining like the Supreme Lord, although he is not as extensive as the Lord. So if we can only elevate ourselves by understanding our original spiritual identity. As long as we are obsessed with these material bodily designations, like gender and all those stuff, we are going to remain in a very degraded condition, which is degraded from our original identity. Because the living entity desires to imitate the Supreme Lord, he is covered by Maya due to our tendency to be enjoyers. Thus, the engagement of the living entity under the clutches of Maya is brought about by forgetfulness of his relationship with the Supreme Lord. Under the influence of Maya, the living entity becomes exactly like a person haunted by a ghost. Such a person speaks all kinds of nonsense. When the living entity is covered by the influence of Maya, he becomes a so-called scientist, philosopher, politician, or socialist, and at every moment presents different plans for the benefit of human society. All these plans are ultimately failures because they are illusory. In this way, the living entity forgets his position as an eternal servant of the Lord. He instead becomes a servant of Maya. Of course, even Maya is a byproduct of Krishna's inferior material energy. Though we refuse to be eternal servants of Krishna, and even if we try to be enjoyers, we still end up being the servant of Maya, meaning indirectly we still remain the servants of Krishna. In any case, he remains a servant. As servant of Maya, he sometimes becomes a king, sometimes an ordinary citizen, sometimes a Rana, Shudra, and so on. In this way, the living entity wanders all over the universe. Only when he comes in contact with the bona fide spiritual master can he understand his real constitutional position. He then becomes disgusted with material existence. At that time, in full Krishna consciousness, he regrets his past experiences in material existence. This regret is very beneficial because it purifies the living entity of material conditional life. He then prays to the Lord to engage in his service, and at that time, Krishna grants liberation from the clutches of Maya. So, as stated by Krishna, the only way to overcome the power of Maya is by surrendering to him, as stated in Gita 7.14. Only by the grace of Krishna can one get out of the clutches of Maya. When the living entity understands his real position by the grace of Krishna, he keeps himself always fit in Krishna consciousness. When he is strong in Krishna consciousness, Maya cannot touch him. So the analogy which is often given is that whenever there is a light, there cannot be darkness. The living entity is exactly like a dog who, overcome with hunger, goes from door to door for some food. So this is actually our condition. As long as we are obsessed with the tendency for material sense pleasures, we might get elevated to the higher planets, but still if we don't engage in devotional service, even in the higher planets, we still have to be degraded to the middle or even worse, the lower planets. So an intelligent human being can understand that if he has to live the life of a dog, he had best become Krishna's dog. So we are eternally meant to be servants of Krishna. So rather than being the servant of Maya, it is best to be the servants of Krishna and to get his eternal association in the spiritual planets, ideally in Goloka Vrindavan. One should engage in the service of Vaishnava and try to please him in every respect. Unless one does so, he does not make spiritual advancement. In the material world, if one does not develop his qualities in goodness, he cannot be promoted to the higher planetary system. So the minimum is to develop the mode of goodness, but gradually we should still elevate ourselves even further to develop pure goodness or Shuddha Sattva. Only then we can transcend the three modes. If one is in goodness, he is promoted to the higher systems. If in passion, he remains in the middle systems. And if in ignorance, he is pushed down to the lower species of life. So now, since we have got this human form of life in this middle earth planet, it simply means that we have been developing the mode of passion in our previous life. So it is incumbent upon us to gradually develop the mode of goodness and also to transcend the three modes by developing pure goodness, by being fixed in Krishna consciousness. So as long as we fail to transcend the modes, we will still remain in all these 84 lakh apartments, and we might get elevated to higher planets or lower planets. But from today's session, we saw regarding the upper planetary systems, and the main takeaway from today is that even in the upper planetary systems, starting from Mars Loka upwards to Jana Loka, Tapa Loka, and even in Satya Loka, those planets are inhabited by the great sages and saints who are still engaged in intense austerity and devotional service. Even they are being very anxious to liberate themselves from this material bondage, and therefore, even after gaining such higher planets, they are still being engaged in devotional service. So we should also follow their example so that we can elevate ourselves to the spiritual planets, and then we can go to Goloka, back to Godhead. So that's all for today's session. Thanks for attending. Any questions or comments? Hello.
Thank you, Prabhu. Well explained, Prabhu.
Okay, thank you. So no questions. Shall I end the session?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, thank you.